The news hit like a thunderclap. Tyson shutting down 5 U.S. plants, effective immediately. For many, it was almost unthinkable. Tyson had weathered storms before, but this time, the doors were closing for good. In small towns across Arkansas, Missouri, and Indiana, the announcement felt less like news and more like a verdict. It was as if the lifeblood of these communities had been drained in a single devastating moment. For generations, Tyson Foods wasn't just a company, it was the heartbeat of these communities. It provided not only jobs, but a sense of purpose, pride, and belonging. Families built their lives around the steady rhythm of shift changes and paydays. The sudden closure was a jarring silence, a shock no one saw coming. The familiar hum of machinery was replaced by an eerie stillness echoing through the empty halls. Corporate jargon about market shifts and operating costs meant only one thing: lives upended overnight. The words on the page were cold, but the reality was painfully personal. Imagine a shift supervisor, coffee in hand, reading the memo, her world collapsing in a single moment. She'd spent years leading her team, now left to wonder what would become of them all. Workers arriving for the afternoon shift found locked gates and security guards instead of open doors. The routine of daily life was shattered, replaced by confusion and disbelief. Phones lit up with frantic calls. Is it true? What about our paychecks? What do we do now? Rumors spread quickly, but answers were few and far between. These weren't just jobs lost, they were identities, family legacies, and the backbone of entire towns. Grandparents, parents, and children had all walked the same factory floors, sharing stories and dreams. Local news crews captured the stunned faces of people who had given decades to Tyson, now told their service was no longer needed. Tears mixed with disbelief as the reality began to sink in. The sense of betrayal was immense. Tyson had been a partner, a provider, a permanent fixture. Company picnics, holiday bonuses, and community events were now just memories. As the sun set, a heavy silence replaced the usual hum of machinery. The plant, once alive with energy, now stood in shadow, its future uncertain. Small groups gathered in diners and on street corners, trying to process the impossible. Conversations were hushed, filled with worry and unanswered questions. The plant, once a symbol of stability, now stood as a monument to shattered security, its faded logo a reminder of what had been lost. The closure wasn't just economic loss, it was a deep, personal wound. Families hugged tighter, neighbors offered comfort, and the pain was shared by all. The social fabric of these towns was violently torn, leaving a gaping hole. Schools, churches, and local businesses all felt the ripple effects, unsure how to move forward. Families faced a future clouded by uncertainty. The question on everyone's mind: how do we rebuild when the foundation is gone? The heart of these communities had stopped beating. The American flag at half-mast was a silent tribute to what had been lost, and no one knew what would come next. The future was a blank page, and the people of these towns could only hope for a new beginning. The Tyson closures weren't just numbers, they were heartbreak, measured in lost livelihoods and shattered routines. Each locked gate was a door closing on someone's dreams, a future suddenly rewritten. Thousands of workers suddenly faced a void where security once stood. The familiar rhythm of daily work was replaced by uncertainty, anxiety, and a sense of loss that rippled through entire communities. Mortgages, groceries, college funds, all built on a paycheck that vanished overnight. The bills didn't stop coming, but the income did, leaving families scrambling to make impossible choices. In kitchens and living rooms, the question echoed: what will we do? Conversations once filled with hope now turned to worry, as parents tried to shield their children from the harsh reality. A father in Missouri, 15 years on the line, now filling out unemployment forms for the first time. The pride of steady work replaced by the anxiety of the unknown. A single mother in Arkansas, terrified about losing the health insurance that kept her son breathing. For her, the stakes were more than financial, they were life and death. These weren't statistics, they were families, neighbors, friends. The pain was personal, and the support of a close-knit community became more important than ever. The emotional toll was crushing, pride and identity stripped away with the job. For many, work was more than a paycheck, it was a sense of purpose, now lost. For many, Tyson was a family tradition, now a legacy interrupted. Generations who once worked side by side now faced an uncertain future, their shared history suddenly fractured. Mental health experts braced for a surge in anxiety and depression. The weight of job loss, fear, and isolation threatened to overwhelm even the strongest among them. Food banks saw lines grow overnight. Churches scrambled to offer support. The community's safety net stretched thin, as more and more families reached out for help. A single plant closure meant 1,000 jobs lost in a town of a few thousand. The impact was immediate and far-reaching, touching every corner of daily life. The safety nets weren't built for a crisis this big. Social workers and agencies struggled to keep up as the need for assistance soared beyond anything they'd seen before. The empty chairs at dinner spoke volumes, a community's core, hollowed out. Every absence was a reminder of what had been lost and what might never return. The pain was immediate, the uncertainty overwhelming. Parents clung to their children, searching for reassurance they could no longer give, and the road ahead looked impossibly long. For many, the journey to recovery would be slow, uncertain, and filled with challenges yet unseen. The shockwaves didn't stop at the plant gates, they rippled through entire towns. Local businesses lost their customers overnight. Diners, hardware stores, car dealerships, all hit hard. For sale signs popped up as families faced foreclosure or moved away to find work. Property values plummeted, erasing years of hard-earned equity. As businesses closed, the town's tax base shrank. Schools, police, and public services all suffered. Community events faded, replaced by a shared struggle and anxiety. Neighbors who once celebrated together now competed for scarce jobs or left town. The closure of a single plant threatened to turn vibrant communities into ghost towns. The social fabric frayed, and the dream of a stable life slipped away. The economic devastation was swift and brutal. A way of life built over generations was dismantled in weeks. The ripple effect was relentless. The sudden shutdowns at Tyson Foods sent shockwaves through the entire U.S. food supply chain, disrupting a system that millions depend on every day for their meals. Thousands of poultry farmers, bound by contracts with Tyson, were left stranded overnight, with no buyer for their chickens and no clear path forward. Many faced mounting debts and uncertainty about their future. Chickens piled up on farms, unable to be processed, while at the same time, there were fewer plants open to handle them. As a result, grocery store shelves began to empty, and customers saw "Limit 2 per customer" signs for the first time in years. Prices for poultry and other meats climbed rapidly, squeezing families who were already struggling with the rising cost of living and ongoing inflation. For many, even basic groceries became a luxury. The crisis exposed a critical flaw in the system: too much power and control concentrated in the hands of just a few giant corporations. When one giant stumbles, the entire system shakes, revealing just how vulnerable the nation's food supply really is. Smaller, regional processors had been pushed out years ago by industry consolidation, leaving no backup plan, no safety net for times of crisis. Trucking companies, feed mills, and packaging suppliers all lost business overnight, as the ripple effects spread far beyond the farms and factories. The entire ecosystem built around these massive plants began to wither, threatening jobs and livelihoods in communities across the country. A single decision made in a distant corporate boardroom led to empty shelves and hardship for families in towns and cities nationwide. The fragility of the food system was laid bare for all to see, as news reports showed the growing crisis. America had put all its chickens in one basket, and when that basket broke, the consequences were immediate and severe. The lesson was clear: our supply chain was dangerously brittle, and the need for resilience and diversity had never been more urgent. As U.S. shelves emptied, Canada stepped in. Canadian processors ramped up production, sending truckloads of chicken south to fill the gap. For American retailers, these imports were a lifeline, but the sight of Product of Canada on packages was a wake-up call. America, the world's breadbasket, now depended on its neighbor for chicken. The shift raised tough questions about food security and national self-reliance. Canadian farmers thrived, but U.S. producers faced new competition. The crisis fueled debate. Should America rebuild its own capacity or accept a new era of dependence? The Maple Leaf's rise cast a long shadow over the future of American agriculture. The Tyson collapse ignited a political firestorm in Washington. Republicans blamed the administration's policies. Democrats blamed corporate greed and lack of oversight. Both sides called for investigations, reforms, and new policies to protect American jobs and food security. The image of Canadian chicken in U.S. stores became a rallying cry for Made in America. Meanwhile, families in affected towns waited for real help as political gridlock stalled aid. The debate raged, but the people most affected were left in limbo. The disconnect between Washington and the heartland had never felt wider. The Tyson crisis exposed the dangers of consolidation in the food industry. Efficiency had come at the cost of resilience. 5 plant closures sent shockwaves nationwide. Farmers and workers were left with no options, squeezed by corporate giants. The myth of too big to fail was shattered. These companies were simply too big to fail without devastating consequences. Profits were privatized, but risks were socialized. Communities paid the price. The lesson: a resilient food system needs diversity, not just size. Over-reliance on a few massive plants created critical points of failure. The crisis forced a reckoning with the true cost of cheap food. Rebuilding would require a fundamental rethinking of the industry structure. The time for change had come. In the aftermath, bold solutions emerged. Decentralization became the rallying cry. Invest in smaller regional processing plants to build resilience. Government-backed loans, antitrust enforcement, and fair contract laws were proposed to level the playing field. Technology and innovation, automation, logistics, alternative proteins offered new hope. Workforce development became a priority, with job retraining and apprenticeships for a modern food industry. The goal, not just new jobs, but better, more stable careers. America's food future would be built on diversity, innovation, and fairness. The blueprint was clear. Now it was time to act. The Tyson collapse was a national reckoning, a crisis that exposed the fragility and inequity of America's food system. It forced a choice: return to the old ways or build something better. The path forward demanded courage, reform, and a commitment to resilience. Policymakers, entrepreneurs, and consumers all had a role to play. Food security became a matter of national identity and justice. The future of food in America was being written in real time. The story of the Tyson collapse could end in tragedy, or mark the beginning of a new chapter. America's food destiny was in its own hands.